Hey, my name's Josh, I'm 20 years old, I'm originally from Middlesbrough and I'm a gay man. So I'm originally from a small village called Great Broughton. It's located on the North York Moors, and Middlesbrough is the local town to it. I would say my upbringing was very traditional because it was a small village, everyone sort of knew each other. My parents both were sort of involved in the farming community, so I was involved in the farming community as well. And through growing up, I really didn't see any LGBT role models. Everyone in my upbringing was mainly heterosexual, was the nuclear family style, and that's really what my upbringing taught me to be. That's what I was taught to do when I was older. I used to go into Middlesbrough quite a lot, and Middlesbrough was quite a deprived town. With this, it means that there's also not a lot of LGBT stuff going on there. And it means that when I was growing up, quite a lot of what I thought LGBT was, it was based down south in London. And I really felt like I didn't really relate to anyone there because had a northern accent, everyone I saw had a southern accent. And it was really, I didn't really relate to them, and I really felt like the heart of the LGBT community was based in London and there was no LGBT community allowed elsewhere. And that's what I felt like growing up in the north, being LGBT. So basically, when I was telling my family, my main approach was to first tell my brothers who had gone to university, as I felt like they would be more understanding about it and they would probably have more experience because they'd gone to different places and had left my home village. So I told them and they reacted quite fine. They were really nice about it and they sort of understood. And then my next approach was really telling my parents, and with this I told my mum first because I thought my mum would be more understanding. When I told my mum reacted very confused and conflicted, I thought, because I think she felt like if you were LGBT it was something to do with your upbringing. But then she found out that it totally wasn't. And the only people she'd seen was LGBT was during the AIDS crisis. So she'd basically grown up during the AIDS crisis and had seen this all on the media. And that's who she thought LGBT community was linked with. So after I told my mum sort of adapting to it, it took her quite a while to sort of get used to the idea. I think it felt quite unnatural to think that I could have a boyfriend. I then ended up telling my dad with my mum, and that was a bit more conflicted because I felt like sort of telling my father was a bit difficult than my mum. But he reacted well as well, and he's still sort of adapting now, though I told him 2 years later. He still, I think, feels a bit conflicted if I bring my boyfriend around and all stuff like that, but he is coming around to it. But of course it takes a lot longer because they weren't really exposed to it when they were growing up. So when I was growing up, Little Britain was really popular at the time, and within that they had a very famous character who used to say, "I'm the only gay in the village." And as I was living in the village, when I became out as gay, I really didn't want to be that person and didn't want to be related to that stereotype because that's who I thought a gay person in the village would be. I also saw the Emily Howard, the trans person in there, and that's how I also really was first exposed to the transgender world as well. So for me, really growing up, the only really way I found out about LGBT community was through the media. At the time also, Alan Carr was really big with his Chatter show on a Friday night, and Graham Norton was as well. These were two very big gay characters who I thought I would have to be when I grew up, but these weren't people I related to at all. So I started panicking that when I came out to everyone, they would just say, well, you're not, because you're not like these people that you see on the TV. So as a result, it made me really struggle with it. But I ended up doing quite a lot of research. And when I came across a YouTuber called Marky Miller, and he's a Californian YouTuber, he was the first gay person who I ever really saw, who I related to. And from this, it really inspired me to come out and be myself, because I found out from that there is no one way of being a gay man. There's many different ways, and it sort of broke the stereotype that I was brought up with. I also came out to my best friend, Michael, and he came out to me, and then we ended up going out, and that was also really useful because this was someone from where I grew up who was very similar background to me, who was gay as well, and it was really a comforting thing to know that I'm not the only one out there and there was another person. But when I first realised I was gay, and this was when I was around 14 years old, I started struggling to hang out with my friends at the time because my friends weren't LGBT, or what I thought at the time were LGBT. So I felt like I didn't really relate to my friends anymore as well. It felt like I was a different person. It felt like because I was gay, I would have to act like these big LGBT characters which I saw online. So I would have to act like Alan Carr or the only gay in the village person. So I really started struggling. I started distancing myself from my friends because I thought, oh no, if they find out I'm gay, then they won't really want to hang out with me anymore because one, I won't act like a gay man. Like they'll think I'm sort of lying. And two, we won't really relate anymore. We won't have much in common. So we had a partner in school to ours, and a lad had come out in about year 9. And when he came out, he was really, really bullied about coming out, and it really affected me. So this lad came out to his best friend, who then went out to tell the whole school about it. And as a result, he then had to come out publicly to the school. In this, he was severely bullied by literally everyone in the school. Lads didn't want to get changed with him in changing rooms, and no one really wanted to hang out with him anymore because they didn't want him to fancy him. So he ended up losing quite a lot of his male friends. But he also saw quite a lot of girls being like, oh, I want a gay best friend, like be my friend. But they weren't really his friends. Because of this, he lost literally all of his friends and ended up being moved from schools because of the bullying. And then as a result, I had to create like a whole new life to him and ended up going back in the closet and hiding who he was for another few years. So when I was deciding when to come out with my boyfriend, me and him were reflecting on the story that we heard. And as a result, we decided that we'll wait until we're like 18 years old, and we thought people would be a lot more mature about the idea of LGBT, would understand that we wouldn't necessarily fancy them, like definitely the lads. So that's why we decided to wait until we were about 18 years old to come out. So when me and my boyfriend eventually came out after having a secret relation for about 3 years, we came out to my friends on my 18th birthday. And we came out in very untraditional ways, in a sense, where we sort of just said we had an announcement and that we said we were going out. And when we came out to our friends, the reaction was very not what we expected. Literally no one cared that we were gay. No one really changed the way they thought about us. On the Monday morning when we went back to school, we thought I had, for these past 3 years, been thinking, when we come out, oh, it's going to be like a huge rumour in school, but literally no one cared. And it was just like a normal day when we built this story up for so long. So really, when we came out, nothing changed and everything was just as we expected, the same, really. It was quite a relief to no longer have to hide when me and him were going out and have to hide a huge identity as us, because definitely with us waiting until 18 to come out, at this point, quite a lot of people were like having relationships. So it was a bit weird why me and him weren't in a relationship and why we weren't flirting with girls at the time. It was quite a relief to just basically end all the rumours, because it was actually rumoured for quite a while that we might have been going out, but no one really knew 100% because we kept it very quiet. At school, we hanged out just like friends and we only really went out secretly. We used to go to York, place like that, which were very far away from where we lived. So no one really knew that we were going out. When I was growing up, I grew up in a very traditional place. I had a very traditional British background and everyone around me had the very same things. So that meant my idea of what family life would be and adult life would be was very much based around I would get a wife, would move into a house, I would then have a kid. And when I found out I was gay, I really struggled with the idea of losing that. So this idea I'd lived with for 14 years of this is what adult life for me will be. So when I found out I was gay, I really struggled because I didn't want to be different from my friends as well. All the rest of my friends would have this sort of life, and I really, really wanted that life when I was younger. And so I really struggled to know the idea that I would never really be able to have like a proper biological kid with a wife and then be able to go from conception all the way to the childbirth and then work through the whole child's life with a woman and be able to live in the house with a woman and all that. So when I was growing up, that really, really struggled with it. But moving on from that, I sort of did a lot of research and I found out that there's loads and loads of ways of having a traditional life and a family, and that the nuclear family, which we all see, is not really the only way to have a family. So when I was growing up, I think that Tom Daly and his husband, that would have been such an influential story for me, because I would have found out that there's a whole different way of having a family. So I think being a gay man has really affected my personality in a way, because I think I'm a lot more accepting than I would have been before. I'm a lot more accepting of people's diversities, and I don't really think stereotypes of what a person should be. But I think if I wasn't gay, then I would probably have no doubt in doubting any of the stereotypes I saw on the social media, on TV shows and that, because there's no reason why I should doubt it. Everyone believes the media and everyone trusts the media. I accept people's different diversities, and I also accept if someone doesn't really agree with me and doesn't really agree with my thoughts and opinions, because I understand not everyone's going to agree with me are not going to agree with what I stand for and all that. When I ended up going to university, the LGBT world really exploded, and I really got to explore the plus in the LGBT plus world. So I started learning a lot more that I previously didn't know about the LGBT community. So like I didn't understand what cisgender meant, and I've really only recently found that out, because it was something that I never really found on social media sites. So I found myself, even now, even though I've been out for quite a long time now, I'm still learning quite a lot, because the LGBT community is just so diverse and so ever changing as well, because everything's just a spectrum that everyone's on. So it means that everyone defines in different ways. And really, the LGBT plus community is all about learning differences within people. And that's what I'm still doing today.